Next up, we have a skills building workshop focusing on design thinking. Welcome Anne-Rose as the next speaker who spends most of her time researching and writing about medical sciences, especially immunology and neuroimmunology. I can't wait to hear your talk.
Thank you for that introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm Anne-Rosa. Today, I'm going to take you through an amazing journey of how to really design your own mission when you're trying to research. So I'm going to share my screen now. Let's do it. Okay, lovely. And if this works, okay, awesome. Sorry. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to discuss how you can get started researching right now. And let's get started, okay? Okay, so what we're going to discuss today, like Sophia also was talking about, is that yes, the traditional thing is that when you're trying to research, you go into a lab, you put on a white coat, you put on some goggles, you play with some chemicals, but that's not all. There's another whole different field of research, which is all to do with analyzing, evaluating, looking at data, trying to make conclusions in your own creative way. And that's what we're going to be looking at. And essentially, the accumulation of all of this will end up in a review article, which you might have heard of. A review article is not like a research article where it reports like a certain experiment and it says, this is what happened, this is what we found. No. What it does, it looks at several different types of research, several different types of experiments, looks at them together, looks at them from a broad picture view, and tries to make conclusions and links and trying to find patterns. That's the whole point of a review article. To try to see if we can make links, try to see if we can suggest potential ways of trying to solve problems for the future using what we already know, trying to pave the way for future research. A review article synthesizes that information, evaluates it. That's what a review article does, and anyone can do that. And the way to start doing that is by researching. And the way to start researching is by thinking about a research question. So, why do we need literature reviews, you may ask? Well, once we have loads of research, then we need something to tell us the relationships between those research. And once we have that, once we have something that tells us the relationships between different research that loads of people in the world have been doing, we need to be able to find, as I said, the path forward. What do we need to research next? How do we bridge the gap from what we know to what we should know to make the future more sustainable? And as you can see in this graph, once the number of literature reviews increases, then we will need to have more and more reviews. Sometimes we will have reviews of reviews. So it's sort of a cycle, and something that we as young people can be involved in. Anyone can, from the comfort of your own home. So why should we do it? Well, essentially what I want you to think about here is that we're starting the actual sort of workshop. Hopefully you have received a template. Let's see if I can also show you that really quickly as well. So it should be on Google Doc, and then you can follow with me as we go through this to try to come up with your own research question, okay? So to have a look at that. And what I'm going to go through will match what's on the document as well. So do have a look. All right. So the first part actually is about why we need a review at all. And that's something that you should be thinking about. Why would you want to start researching? Why would you want to do this? Well, maybe you would like to present a topic in a novel way, in a way that no one else has done before. Maybe you want to let other people know what's been done in the past, what we should do in the future, if there were any inconsistencies in the past, if we could perhaps see why there were mistakes in the past, how we could improve them, how we can make a bridge between past and future research, how we can pave the way for future prospects, future potential to make the world more sustainable. And finally, and most importantly, to critically evaluate what's been done in the past and based on that suggest what we should do next. I know this might sound all complicated, but we will break down the first step of this process, and hopefully you'll be able to take it on board and do your own creative thinking and your own creative research, and sort of try to really dissect your own self and your own reflections on why you'd like to do some research, and also take it on board for the future, because anyone can benefit from this and anyone can do it as well. So, what should a review article look like? What should this research look like? Well, you would require to use loads of studies, okay? What do I mean by studies? Experiments. Experiments that other people have done all over the world. Look at those, try to analyze them. And then these pieces of experiments, they should be relevant, okay? They should be focused onto a topic, okay? And we will come to this. What topic should I choose, you may ask? I have no clue. Well, I will hopefully guide you through being able to select what you would like to really think about and try to dissect. And then finally, the paper or the research should offer novel, new insights into something that we've already known and how we can use it for the future. That's the most important bit, is to really highlight the new potential inside of a certain field, and that comes from you. Especially as young people, being able to think creatively, it's sort of a given. And because of that, we've got so much potential within this field of research. Yes, especially with COVID-19, we may not have been able to go into labs, but it shouldn't be able to stop us from doing research. So, you may ask, well, what can I do about it? Well, let's try to see. The first thing that we need to do, and as we did this morning as well, when you chose your stream that you wanted to look at, is to discover what you want to know more about. And the way to do that is, first of all, self-reflection. What has interested you in the past, whether that's in school, once you're reading a book or a magazine or anything? Is there something that has interested you or caught your attention? If you don't know, that's fine as well, because there's a way to figure out what you like. And that way is by reading as well. I'm a huge fan of reading, and I think reading will really help us. So what we're going to do is do a live demonstration of how to really find out what you like when you don't actually know what you like. Like, you're not sure, do I like physics? Do I like biology? Do I like chemistry? I don't know what I like. But we can figure that out. How do we do that? We look at science news websites, because these websites show us the new research that's been done. So what we can do using those new research is to try to figure out, okay, maybe that interests me, maybe that interests me, looking at the new research that's been done. Okay, so let's have a look. Let's go, let's choose Science Daily, for example, and let's go into the web browser. So this is a live demo. We love live demos. And I'm doing this live. This is not rehearsed. We're doing it together. So it's something that you can do as well. Right. So let's see. So we've got some news here. There's health, technology, environment, society. Let's think. So I'm interested in medical sciences. So I'm going to be a bit biased towards that, but you can choose whatever you would like. So let's see. Researchers boost human mental function with brain stimulation. Okay, that sounds interesting. What else is there? Scientists discover that 14 genes causes obesity. So can you see what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to see if there's anything that interests me from these news pieces. Dancing molecules successfully repair severe spinal cord injuries. Does that sound interesting to me? Let's see if I can find something that really catches my interest. Oh my god, a stealthy way to combat tumors. You know what? I think I'm interested in that. So let's have a look. Once we see this title, we think, okay, so we've got tumors here, and want to see maybe how we can sort of combat that, how we can treat cancer perhaps in a new way. And this research, as you can see, was dated in November 19. Okay, so when you're doing this after this workshop, is you do the same thing. You choose one of these websites, you look at these articles. You know what? This is quite interesting, you might be thinking. And okay, let's have a read. So what this does is, this website essentially really puts the science in an accessible way, so it helps us to understand it. That's the main point. We need to understand what's going on. So let's see. Let's read a little bit. Under the right circumstances, the body's T cells can detect and destroy cancer cells. Okay, so I'm just reading the first sentence here because we don't have that much time to read the whole thing. And I'm going to show you what you can do using that. Okay, so right now what we know is We know that this is going to be about tumors. We know that this is going to be about T cells. But what are T cells? What are cancer cells? What are tumors? What right circumstances? These are all questions that jump out to me. Maybe you as well, it jumps out to you as well. So what we should do is we should write these questions down. Maybe get a whiteboard and then write down tumor therapies, for example, that I read about, that today I found interesting from this news website. And I have a few questions. So make that mind map. I have a few questions. My first question is, what are tumors? What are T cells? How can the T cells try to attack tumors? So attack, how can that happen? Like genuinely, how does that work? And then could there be any disadvantages to that? Could there be any advantages? So I'm just jotting stuff down, and that's what you should be doing as well. This is one way for you to really try to see what you like. You might already have an idea of what you like me, for example. Oops, sorry. Sorry about that. You might already know that, you know what, I like medical sciences, and that's what I'm going to have a look at in the news. If you don't have anything, then you go on to these, for example, websites. They're also in that Google document that I've put for you guys, so you can go and have a look at them. Look at the news. Oh my God, I think I find this interesting. Oh my God, I think I find this interesting. Choose what you're interested in, okay? And based on that, you can move forwards, okay? So that was our little live demonstration. And like what we did, we started to ask questions. What is a tumor? What is a T cell? How do these link together? What is this new research saying? Okay, read the rest of the article, try to make more and more questions, okay? And once you have a list of questions, start answering them. But don't try to go into too much detail, because what we're trying to do is have a big overview of what's happening in that field. We want to know the big picture so that we can think about it holistically, so that we can think about it in a way that doesn't really distract us. Like the details, we don't want the details to distract us. We want to see the whole big picture so we can find the patterns, so we can find the connections, so we can make links. That's the most important thing, okay? So start asking questions and then start to answer them. How do you answer them? By going online on Google, writing that question down, or searching for some keywords, going onto accessible articles and sources, and trying to learn. So you don't need to go to like a journal or something to read it. Any simple website, try to understand what's going on first, okay? That's our first goal, to try to understand the whole big picture. All right, so we go onto a magazine, for example, or we go onto a simple website that explains to us in basic terms, in layman's terms, what's going on. We could even go on and listen to some podcasts that aren't very advanced, try to see what experts say about it, okay? That's the first step. Once we've identified what we would like to read about, we start asking questions. And then what we do after that, the way that you can ask questions is ask what, where, when, why, who, how. These basic things that we know all are quite helpful. And these can help us to find answers, okay? However, once we've reached that stage where we've asked so many questions, we have a good idea of the whole big picture, then we need to start thinking about the details. Okay, so what specifically is happening? How is the immune system specifically involved in trying to combat tumors? What could be the limitations of using immune cells? How could we control them? Are genes involved? Now we go into the nitty-gritty, into the details, okay? Once we have the big fuller picture, we go into the details. We use this time journals, okay? So more advanced sources. So journals are more detailed. We can use journals, podcasts, interviews from experts, lectures, to try to really develop the understanding, okay? Those questions that we had, let's expand them more. Let's think about more questions, more and more and more questions, and let's answer them in more and more and more detail, okay? You may have noticed that we actually don't have an aim yet. We're just trying to explore right now, and you're absolutely right. We haven't actually come up with a question yet. Why? Because to come up with a good question, we have to have a good idea of what's happening around us. And all this procedure that we've done so far is doing exactly that, trying to see exactly what's happening. So Once we looked at all the details using journal articles, that's coming up here, loads of journal articles that we have, can be commentaries, reviews, research papers, podcasts, what else? Interviews. And then we have so much data to look at. And once we have this so much data and this good understanding of what's happening in the field that we picked, this is when we can form a good research question. And when we're reading these research and these pieces of information, articles, what we should think about are two things: validity and reliability. So two things that I want you to keep in mind. I'll quickly go through them, okay? Validity, when we're thinking about validity, is all about trying to see, okay, so are what they're saying actually true? Like, does it actually match up? So, for example, if they're saying that there's a correlation between eating apples and not going to the doctor, is that a correlation or is that a causation? Okay? Does eating an apple a day keep the doctor away? Does it really? This is when we're thinking about validity. And when we're thinking about reliability is when we're thinking, are the results consistent? Okay? Are the studies consistent? Are they being done under a suitable environment for them to, like, for us to be able to replicate these results? This is quite important as well. Okay? So these two things, when you're reading, keep those in mind. Now, back to our research question. How do we actually come up with this question? Okay, so we think about, well, now we have all this knowledge, this whole big picture, we also know some details, okay? What is the problem that we want to explore? What are our aims, okay? Let's relate it to the real world. What's the importance of this? Well, if we can cure cancer, then we can help so many people in the world, and that's so important, okay? What's our point for doing this? This is what we need to think about when we want to think about making a good research question, a good thesis, okay? And these are the things that you should think about. And what makes it easier is the fact that we have so much knowledge. We have this whole huge picture idea of what we know about this field. We can make and find patterns and connections, and in that way we can now really start to think about a good effective question. Okay, so the end, well, actually, is it the end? Because no, it's not the end. Now is when we start the real deal. We start the research. This is when we start the research, everyone. We have our question. That's amazing. That's a great step forward. Now we have to start the research. And we have to think about structuring our research, okay? An introduction, a main body, a conclusion, references, okay? There's loads of resources for you to do that. However, and then after that, you can get your work peer-reviewed and published in Youth That Matters. That's our flagship journal as well. And that's really what you can do. However, the first step is to have that research question. Okay. So that was my presentation. I would love to hear any of your questions now, if that's okay. Let's see if I can get back. If there are any questions, let me know.
Thank you for your amazing presentation. I love the enthusiasm, and I think it's really helpful for getting inspired and creating new ideas and putting your ideas into writing.